Do you think psychometric tests are culturally sensitive?
Okay, I mean that is obviously a huge question, and I can sense 100 sort of traps to that I could end up saying entirely the wrong thing. So let me get into this. Number one, pretty much all psychometric tests are self-rating. It's your view of yourself. So that means that almost every result is based on how honestly I answered and how well I know myself. And I think immediately that for me causes questions around taking any psychometric as any version of truth. It's only a version of my own perspective on myself. Some psychometrics better than others. The second thing which is the four quadrants, and there's different versions of that, but typically they're assigned to colors, right? This is all based on Jungian psychology, right? Carl Jung. And in essence, that is I guess those are broad themes of humanity, right? Some people are more forceful and driven. Some people are more social and extroverted. Some people are quieter and caring, and some people are very analytical and technical, right? And I don't think culture changes humanity. Humanity trumps culture in a way, like the wiring of us as human beings. Now, how those things show up will look very different in your culture. So we've talked a bit about the bombastic US leaders.
Absolutely.
Right? So a typical red, yellow, extroverted person in the US would certainly look highly different to someone in the Far East, for example, where what would be red might be just a furrowing of the brow, or a use of a word that's ever so slightly stronger than a different word. Whereas in the US it might be throwing something at someone or swearing or punching a table. In the Far East it might be something much more delicate. So of course all psychometrics are to some degree affected by culture, but it's more, I would say, the manifestation of the behavior that's culturally different, not the wiring of humanity in a sense. Like I don't think people are that different.
So anytime people take psychometric tests,
Yes.
especially because they always happen in a position of leadership, anyways, from what you said, director onwards,
Sure.
leaders.
Yep.
I don't want to interchange leaders and leadership. So why then are organizations using psychometric tests? What exactly are they getting from it? I understand there's been different arguments, or we want to have the right people in our team and these and that and all of those things. But in your opinion, are they using it for the right purposes?
There are a very limited number of psychometrics that would recommend themselves to be used for recruitment. Most mainstream psychometric tests are actually explicitly not to be used for recruitment, because it's not about boxing people in and putting them in a kind of pigeonhole that says you are X. And this is really an important distinction. So the correct use of any psychometric is twofold, really. One is to gain greater insight into myself. Right? So fundamentally, does this tool help me better understand why I am how I am? This is what we call conscious leadership, right? How aware am I of how I am, how I show up, how other people might perceive me, why I have the feelings I have, and then how I'm different to other people. The second thing then is for us as a team to be more aware of each other's styles and adapt accordingly. So for me, this should be like 90% of why a psychometric is used, right? It should be used in an organization to help a person better understand their own way of being, or to help colleagues better understand each other's way of being and adapt accordingly. The other circumstances around, like, recruitment or promotions and things like that, there's a place for that, and I'm sure there's people who are far more expert than me to do it. But I do think we have to be very cautious about how we apply the results of these things to say, oh, therefore you can't, or therefore you're not. That definitely would be the wrong way to use a tool like
If you had to name 4 skills for our audience who wants to be great leaders, or who wants to improve their leadership outlook in their place of work, what critical or important 4 skills will you recommend to them?
I'd like to start that with a quote that I came across almost right back at the start of my training career. It's by a guy called Max Dupre, and the quote changed my perspective entirely, and I use it to this day. I still use it on programs, and I see light bulbs going off in people's heads when I say it. And the quote is, "Lead the people, manage the process." So for most of us in organizations, there's management, there's leadership, there's managers, there's leaders. We interchange the language, right? But for most human beings, we do not like being managed, right? Because what is management? It's checking on things. It's making things a process, repeatable. It's monitoring something. It's auditing something, right? And management's massively important. But we should apply those things to process, not to people. When you start trying to manage people feel like that's straitjacket, and it doesn't work very well. And so we lead people, we manage process. So that kind of helps for me, number one, that sort of puts kind of the two in two different categories.
Because the process actually does then manage certain things about the people without you necessarily going to the people and say you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about, like, some people might be thinking, so people can misbehave in the place of work or do whatever they like, then straight away, if you have policies in place, check and balances for those things, then they will not misbehave.
Well, because the one thing you could say about management is it's fair, because I have a process for it. So if you're underperforming, we have a process. It's fair. If I did leadership's not a process. So maybe I handle you one way, handle someone else another way. Maybe then, we end up in a tribunal, because it's like, well, hang on, it wasn't. So we need a process for that. Or I give someone a promotion because, I feel like this person's got great potential. Well, okay, listen to your intuition, but actually we need a fair process for this. This is management. It's really important, super important. But leading people is really the heart of it. So then, okay, now we've got that distinction clear. What is it that we need to do in order to be leading people effectively? So the first thing is actually nothing to do with the other person. It's to do with you. So my colleague and my business partner, Tor Olafsson, he's the Icelandic connection in our company. He wrote a book called Beyond Ego. And since he's written this book as a company, we spend a lot more time talking to leaders about their own ego. And honestly, I would say the first thing is you have to do like a deep dive on you before you can go anywhere in the leadership world. It's nothing to do with how you behave with anyone else. It's, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Am I willing to admit this and say it in front of people? And then what impact do I have on other people? Right? Because for most people, right, even if you're not always a nice person, if you know how you are, and you admit it to people, like, by the way, when I'm under pressure, I'm sorry, I get really short-tempered and I can be a complete, idiot at times. Please forgive me when these moments happen. People will often be much more understanding. What drives us crazy is the person that doesn't realize it, never apologizes for it, or insists that they do it even though they're not naturally gifted at it. So I think your first duty, first responsibility, is to know yourself as well as you possibly can and to face up to that. Psychometrics, by the way, do help in that, but also just really getting honest feedback from people. And as a leader, it can be hard sometimes to get the truth out of people.
Because they want to please you, isn't it? Yeah.
The more authority you hold, the harder it is to find those people who can give you the honest truth. But you really need people who are going to tell you how you come across and let you know when you've stepped over the line. And then I think once you've got that self-awareness, then you can move on to some of the more interesting aspects. I mean, the next one would be get to know people much better. And we always want to find a shortcut or like a single process I can use. But if I've got a team of 10 people, that they're not a homogenous group of 10 that have the same interests and the same motivations. So it's no good just trying to tempt people with the same incentives and stuff like that. If I've got 10 people, and I know this is a real pain, I've got to listen to 10 people and understand 10 people's different aspirations, different personality types, different fears, histories that they're bringing into the role, insecurities. And you can't really be a leader and unless you've taken the time to really understand those people that you are leading in some way. And for a lot of leaders, it's like, well, where am I going to find the time? I've got a whole job to do, and I haven't got the time to get to know people. But I'm going to forget the company name. It wasn't a McKinsey, but it was one of the consultancy firms. They said something like, connecting with people is your job.
Yeah.
Not the thing that you think is your job is actually not your job, right? In some ways, all the work that you're doing really should be probably stuff that other people's doing. Your job is to get to know the people.
It's almost like you saying there was a training that a guy delivered. So I was told when I was having a conversation, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, now we can brief. We're going to open our email after the training, and we're going to go through emails." And they got to the end of the training session, and everybody were bragging, how many emails have you got in your box? And these are directors and VPs. How many emails have you got? And the trainer facilitator then told them and said, if you're having a whole lot of emails, then you're doing something wrong.
Right.
It means that you've not delegated properly for people to pick up those jobs.
Yes.
And they're still waiting and relying on you.
Yeah.
So you're not being a great leader.
No, exactly true. I mean, I'd really support that. I'd really support that. So for me, number one, get to know yourself. Number two is get to know each person, even if that feels like a massive task. You can't mobilize people until you do that. Then the third thing is co-creation. So this is maybe where like Hollywood and stuff has done us a bit of a disservice, because we somehow feel like the leader has to be the one with the answers, leading the charge, telling you where we're going. And actually, most people don't actually like that so much. And in fact, if you make the declaration of where you want to go, it's a bit hit and miss whether people are going to fall in line, like whether they agree or don't agree. So really, leadership is about co-creating stuff with people. So how do we want to work as a team? Let's sit down and draw up some ground rules. Where do we want to be by this time next year? Let's sit down and talk it through. And I think that process of co-creation, it allows people to have the space to say where they disagree. It allows a process of aligning and agreeing, and you get to see who's on board, who maybe you need to take a little bit more time. So for me, like the third skill is something about not trying to go it alone because you're the leader, but actually taking the time with your people. Now, the frustrating thing is that is a slower process.
It is.
Right? Wouldn't it be much more efficient for me to go and tell them? And I would even argue...
If you do it often, then it becomes part and parcel. It's because people don't do it too often.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it's slower. And because those people are not expecting it, so they don't know what to do. So they have to take a long time to come back to you and deliberate and stuff. But if it becomes part and parcel of them, then the next year it's not going to be as slower as this year, because they will learn from it. And then in 10 years' time, it becomes natural to the organization.
You've got basically like short-term versus long-term gain.
Yeah.
Right? Short-term gain, you do it all, it's done, push it out. Some people will be on it, some people won't. Some people will care, some people won't. You might get lucky. But long-term, it's not the best process. Because actually, if people have co-created it, they don't need you driving it the whole time, because it's their vision, their words, it was their desire. So it's kind of a much better way to lead through co-creation, as it were. And then I was sort of struggling with like is there kind of a magic fourth one? And there's a few hovering around in the back of my mind. I'm not really sure kind of which one takes priority. I was half wondering, like, is the fourth one around creativity and innovation and openness? Because I think the management world is about making things predictable and stable. And actually in today's world, you don't want things to be too stable right now, because the rate of change is so fast. I think a lot of teams and leaders get a bit stuck in their ways. So I think for me, great leaders allow possibilities of how else can we do this? And they encourage the team to do something differently. And just by changing things up or doing meetings in a different way or allowing things to happen in a different way, it encourages teams to try new things. That's that's probably pretty high on my list
Yeah.
for the fourth one.
You know what? When I, extended this invitation to you, I knew straight away that I'm going to be learning myself as well.
Okay.
So it was a cheap coaching session for me.
Yeah, that's true.
But those 4 points are really, really critical, because I'm just imagining myself in my position and some of the things you've said, which is something that I'm always an advocate of. But the lead, the people, and manage the process is so important, because one of the things that drive people out of an organization is trying to manage the people, and everybody can start saying, "Oh, you're micromanaging," because you're concentrating on the people and say you're not doing this, you're not doing that, rather than creating the processes and making it easy and looking at the challenges they're facing and trying to overcome those challenges.
Sure.
For them.
For some time ago, I had a working theory. Is it possible that you could get it exactly wrong, lead the process, and then manage the people? And I thought, maybe it's true. And then I was working with a water company in the UK, and they'd invested £19 million on a new bit of technology kit. Essentially, it was like a wireless handheld device for people in the field doing water meter readings and things like that. And I checked in with the project lead on this, £19 million. And he said to me, yeah, we haven't seen the full benefits of the investment yet. The missing piece is an investment in people to encourage them to want to use this technology, because people are still very resistant about embracing the technology. So he said, his email ended to me was, the investment's there, the potential is in the hardware, but until we make the shift with the people, we probably won't see the benefits around £19 million. And I thought, now here's the thing, I think they've led the process, they've kind of gone, let's go and do this brand new hardware, and then they try and manage a whole load of people into saying, well, you will use this handset, and the people don't like it, they don't want to be told what to do, they weren't bought into it.
Which brings your third point, which is co-creation.
Yeah, co-creation.
Yeah,
right?
Rather than you just telling people this is what you need to do, because you think the bottom up, they call it bottom up, but co-creation is better. I like that. Co-creation allows everybody to be part of it, so they already have an input. And once you have an input into something, you don't want it to fail either.
No. Because
you have your name to it, and we're going to make this work.
And here's the thing. I don't think that £19 million is a lot of money, but I don't think I don't think a lot of multinational companies would blink at that type of investment in an IT infrastructure. But then you come to our world, like when I'm designing management training programs for major global brands, if they're investing like $500,000 into a program, this is an extraordinary large amount of money going into it in our world. So I just think, how is it that we can build the business case so easily to invest $19 million in a bit of hardware, but when a training company or our HR equivalents, partners, are trying to build the case for, I don't know, 150,000 for a management training program, we have to fight like hell to try and get that heard, to try and get the budget for that. There's something like, somehow I feel like we're skeptical that these things really make a difference.
I agree. That's one. And I think the other is, and we've had this on this podcast where we've talked about whose responsibility it is to develop an employee. Is it they themselves or an organization? And I'm not a big fan of organizations that do not have a developmental plan for their employees. I think it's beyond we don't believe in leadership training or anything like that. I think it's more into, these people are going to take these skills and go, so we're going to waste all of this money. At least from what I've seen in different organizations. I think it's more than that, because when I look at the company where I was working for when we met, they invest in people. They still do it up to today because they have that value. And a lot of those people left. I left. Vasson, who was also very articulate in that training, also left. There's another lady that was in our group that also left. But there's still a lot of those people still there and adding value to the organization. So I believe that is companies fearing the fact that they're going to invest a lot of money in people and people leaving more than they not believing in? Because I find it a bit difficult to understand that an organization wouldn't believe in investing in their people.
There is definitely a cartoon, and I can't credit it because I've seen it so many times, but I don't know who drew it. And the cartoon has like these kind of boxes, and the first box says, what if we train the people and then they leave? And the next box says, the person's replying and saying, what if we don't and they stay? So I think, so what's your solution to this, right? We don't invest in people. I understand organizations should want to retain their talent. Of course, like you want to have a place where you don't want to train people and then that investment is lost. And I have worked with companies where we come in and talk about all these amazing ideas, and actually leaves the person terribly frustrated because they're like, well, I can't do any of that in my company. But then I think we took that project on in the wrong way. We should have started working at the senior team. And we've learned that lesson actually now as a company. We won't go near a project until we've worked with the directors at least to make sure that doesn't happen. But I also wonder whether we should be a bit less fearful about the people leaving thing. It's really for me, it's a really healthy, positive thing. We invest in people, we grow them. Your company may be a stepping stone in someone's career path. Maybe they'll come back, but if not, like, we've done a good thing. We've helped them grow and move on, and they'll say wonderful things about you. They'll encourage people to come and join and say what a wonderful thing it was. Some people will stay. So I don't. Whilst I wouldn't want to lose people, I think helping people find their career and move forwards. You've got to remember, leadership in an organization, I apologize, I'm now also using the word incorrectly, is a pyramid, right? So there's always going to be fewer and fewer positions. And if people always want to grow and move up in an organization, we don't want to leave someone to get bitter and 10
years, 15 years.
Right, I've had no promotion, I'm stuck in the same job. So it's okay, let's let them go out into the world and say brilliant things about us. And, maybe when there's a gap, they'll come back as well. Absolutely. So I think we should be a bit less fearful about that.
Right. Fantastic. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it does.
So thank you very much, Chris, for coming to the studio today to talk to us about leadership. And I've learned a lot from this, from the 4 skills, which I mentioned earlier, which is leading the people and managing the process, but co-creation, fantastic. And I'll take this with me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners I will take this with them as well. One last question before you go. It could just be a summary for our guests, because this show is Big Cipher. How can a leader sustain their leadership and not get complacent? Their good leadership values and not get complacent.
Yeah, you're setting that up like you want me to give you a really nice single sentence answer, but that's a huge question. That's a huge question, right? There's so much in that. If you wanted the simplest possible answer to that, isn't it a commitment to lifelong learning? Isn't it a commitment to saying I'm not finished, I'm not done? Having the humility to say there's probably always a new skill, an ability. Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits talked about sharpening the saw, isn't it? So for me, the leaders I've most enjoyed working with have an absolute passion, maybe even just a curiosity to learn something new, to try doing something differently. And the people I find hardest to work with are the ones who are like, well, no, I know how to do this. Because then there's nowhere to go, right? I know how to do it. Well, okay, well, I guess just stay where you are then. But I think the only way to sustain it is an insatiable curiosity to learn, to try something new, to get feedback on how you're doing, and to recognize we're never going to be a finished product. You're never going to be sitting back and going, that's it, I'm a great leader now, I don't need to do anything else. Like this is you're never going to reach that point. So that's my simple answer.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to the studio. It's lovely having you here, and I'm sure we're still gonna have you probably in our series 5 or 6, giving us more insight in the future. But
I'd love to come back, and if anyone wants to find me on LinkedIn, I'll gladly pick up any of these conversations or more.
Absolutely. So, do you want to let them know your name on LinkedIn so that they
Yeah,
can follow you?
if you search for me on LinkedIn, I'm just Chris Atkinson, and you should be able to find me pretty easily, or the company Strategic Leadership. And in there, you can also find then my book, Corporate Energy, my business partner's book called Beyond Ego, all of which tie up with the themes of what we've talked about today.
And guys, I'm seriously, you know what? I've been in this training session, and I'm letting you know that you just reach out to him on LinkedIn, and he's very helpful as well. The quality of advice you're going to get from him, or direction, is, you know, immeasurable. So I really encourage you to do that. And thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Nice having you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.